morning. Welcome to the Monday edition of your Breakfast from Leadership Television inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Weber. I hope you had a beautiful weekend. Today is the first day of a working week in the world, not just Nigeria alone. And of course, without wasting much time, we head up to our newspaper review segment of the show, where we have Nigeria's most influential newspaper leadership leading the pack of our review newspapers this Monday. And leadership's leading story says recapitalization, combined capital of 21 banks hits 5.14 trillion naira. Recapitalization, combined capital of 21 banks hits 5.14 trillion naira. We have the cover picture of the Executive Secretary of Nigeria's Border Communities Development Agency, Dr. George Kelly Alabo, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, Honorable Dawari George, Honorable Michael West, and Barrister Osima Jima during the minister's thank you visit to Asari Toru local government area, Rivers State, yesterday. And that picture is what is gracing the cover of Leadership this Monday. Police arrest suspected killers of Abuja female lawyer orders. That story is on page 8 of Leadership. Defection, Jangtes Mutuan to resign, contest fresh election. That story is on page 8 of Leadership. Of course, it's no longer news that the Plateau State Governor Mutuan defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress Party last week. And of course, as a follow-up, the former governor of the state, Jonah Jang, is telling the governor to resign and contest fresh election. On the business cover of Leadership this Monday, UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed headlines Leadership Conference Awards. Of course, we'll take some excerpts from that business story. Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Dr. Amina Mohammed, has confirmed her participation as a keynote speaker at the 18th edition of the Leadership Annual Conference and Awards. The event will take place on Thursday, February 12, 2026 at the International Conference Center, Abuja. Dr. Amina will speak on the theme of the conference, political stability and sustainable development in Africa in an increasingly unstable global system, a roadmap for Nigeria. Dr. Amina Mohammed was also the former special advisor on MDGs, that is Millennium Development Goals, to former President Goodluck Jonathan, and she's now presently the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Of course, she's expected back to be the keynote speaker in Leadership's forthcoming conference awards. Still on Leadership cover, Rivers Assembly alleges plot to thwart impeachment process. The story is on page 30 of Leadership. Of course, reports have been awash with impeachment notice served by the Rivers State House of Assembly to the governor, Similaye Fubara, and that was the second time of doing so. So Nigerians are waiting with bated breath to see how it pans out. Lai Mohammed says Buhari appointed me minister because of my loyalty. That's what's on page 26 of Leadership. 2026 budget, 2 federal ministries allocate 209.9 billion naira for computer software research orders. That story is on page 17 of Leadership. 2026 budget, 2 federal ministries allocate 209.9 billion naira for computer software research orders. 22 die in Kaduna Lokoja road accidents. And atop the masthead of Leadership, Katsina justifies planned release of 70 suspected bandits. Lastly, on the cover of Leadership, experts highlight anesthetics shortage as Chimamanda's lawyers give hospital ultimatum over son's death. That is also a developing story. Of course, award-winning author Chimamanda has alleged the hospital's culpability in the son's death. And it's a continuing story as she has taken the next step to seek legal address. The story continues on page 4 of Leadership newspaper. It's on that note we move to page 3 of Leadership, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on waiting for another census. Waiting for another census. By November 2026, Nigeria will have marked exactly 20 years since its last census was conducted. We recall that the previous exercise was held in November 2006 under the administration of President Olusegun Obasanjo. The report from the November 2006 census showed Nigeria's population was 140,431,000 790, comprising 71 million plus males and 69 million plus females. Nearly 20 years after the previous survey, numerous changes have taken place, including a deteriorating security situation that has resulted in many lives being lost. Indeed, for reasons that many Nigerians still cannot rationalize, 3 successful administrations after former President Obasanjo failed to conduct a national census. Let's move to the stand inside our stand, where the paper actually takes a stand. In 2022, while planning for the highly anticipated 2023 census, the nation invested in new technology, including digital mapping and biometric capture as part of measures to ensure an accurate and transparent head count. So why the delay? It's instructive to observe that Nigeria requires a population and housing census to plan and tackle its complex development challenges effectively. The Nigerian government should be concerned that no one can determine the exact number of Nigerians living in the country, as the current population estimate relies on projections from the 2006 census, which is now outdated. We strongly suggest that the Bola Tinubu administration must change the narrative by ensuring that the country conducts a census. The fact remains that accurate population and housing data are necessary for sound planning. Nigeria needs to know the exact figure of its population to plan effectively for present and future generations. We need to have a head count now. Census is the fulcrum of today's stand in leadership, waiting for another census. We just took some excerpts from that stand. From there, we move to page 19. Incidentally, Nigerian's sister publication, National Economy, is now a pullout in Leadership Monday. Of course, we go there and take the leading story in that pullout. It says, rent shock, inflation fuels to 80% hikes, deepens Nigeria's housing crisis. Rent shock, inflation fuels 80% hikes, deepens Nigeria's housing crisis. Tenants seek alternatives at suburbs as landlords cite rising costs. Today's leading story on National Economy, which is now a pullout in Leadership Monday publication. Still on that National Economy, 34.7 million Nigerians face hunger from conflict, rising costs, coming from PwC. In the capital market, stock market, analysts forecasted 300 trillion naira market capitalization amid political global risk. Tax reform, economists highlight risk opportunities in new fiscal era. These are leading story on the cover of National Economy. This Monday, National Economy is now a pullout in Monday's publication of Leadership. So don't forget to always get your copy of Leadership Monday, because you are definitely going to be getting a bumper publication. We move from there to the back page of Leadership, where we have Monday column with Dakuku PT side. Today is writing on echoes of Venezuela, Nigeria braces for economic turmoil. Echoes of Venezuela, Nigeria braces for economic turmoil. Monday column with Dakuku PT side. We take some quotes from that Monday column. It says, but since January 3, 2026, Venezuela stands as stark evidence that oil markets are indifferent to Nigeria's hopes. The core issue is not Venezuela alone, it is Nigeria's risky habit of assuming best case scenarios. Quote from today's column with Dakuku PT side. Echoes of Venezuela, Nigeria braces for economic turmoil. Before we leave the back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. On the news, Bauchi government won't defect, says PDP chairman. And of course, Ghana Must Go says they play in pidgin English. Is on that note we conclude review of Leadership bumper publication this Monday. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of these leading stories, www.leadership.ng. And also forget to visit the website of National Economy on www.nationaleconomy.com. From Leadership, we head up to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Daily Sun. Daily Sun is talking about 2026 budget, which Leadership also took some excerpts in one of his business leading stories. It says Tinubu Shetima to spend 8.74 billion naira on travels in 2026. Leading story on today's Daily Sun newspaper. And mark 14.7 billion naira, 2.12 billion naira on presidential air fleet honorarium. Power, food, pegs to form part of presidency's 43.19 billion naira project. As kickers to that leading story. Still on Daily Sun, man whose wife children are kidnapped in Kogi cries for help. EFCC NFIU to spend 101 billion naira on anti-graft war. Wike replies those calling for his sack, says Tinubu knows my worth and does not need anybody to tell him. Armed robbers attack Lagos-bound commuter bus in Otukpo, Shoot 3. And still on Daily Sun newspaper, lastly, local government accounts, Osun files charges against bank officials, hearing holds January 30. And that brings to a close review of all the headline stories on Daily Sun newspaper this Monday. For more, log into the website of Daily Sun. We heads up to the next paper on our lineup for review, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian still on 2026 budget. Amid revenue uncertainty, vehicles, sundry expenses, and quote, caught big slices. 2026 budget. Amid revenue uncertainty, vehicles, sundry expenses, and quote, caught big slices. We have the illustration of the 2026 budget beneath the leading story. Presidential vehicles allocation increased by 135% to 11.25 billion naira. State House, EFCC, Nigerian Army planned 17 billion naira on miscellaneous quotes. Head of Civil Service Federation, 10 ministries will write paperless scripts to spend 2.5 billion naira. That is 42.3% higher than 2025 on stationery. Villa Mini solar grid gets 7 billion naira. Illustration beneath today's Guardian newspaper leading story. 2026 budget amid revenue uncertainty, vehicles, sundry expenses caught big slices. The National Association of Resident Doctors NAND postpones planned strike by 2 weeks as VP Shettima intervenes. Header seeks accountability as UK moves to return stolen $9.5 million. Bandits impose 50,000 naira farming tax on Kano Katsina settlement. Same Kano that the governor is about to release about 700 bandits from jail. Fubara appeals for calm as Rivers Assembly alleges plot to stall impeachment. Wema Bank launches upgraded version of ALAT alert. And that will take us to the stories just beneath the masthead of The Guardian. AGC at risk of rotational presidency breach, says Okechukwu. Price stability has forced casualty of new tax misinterpretation. Price stability has forced casualty of new tax misinterpretation. AFCRO Day, military advised against coup partisanship. And that concludes review of underline stories on The Guardian this Monday. For more, log into the website of The Guardian, www.guardian.ng. And that takes us to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Punch. The Punch is still talking 2026 budget. It says MDAs inject 3.5 trillion naira new projects despite federal government freeze. The Punch headline story. 2026 budget twist. MDAs, that is ministries, departments, and agencies, inject 3.5 trillion naira new projects despite federal government freeze. Power, transport, health dominate new spending as fresh projects take 15% of capital budget. Federal government proposes 41 billion naira to upgrade 109 foreign missions. Wema Bank introduces voice banking on alert. Armed Forces Day, federal government governors hail soldiers' sacrifices. Beside the masthead of the Punch, INEC faces legal heat over missing 55.9 billion naira 2019 election funds. Chimamanda solicitors right Lagos hospital, doctor suspended. That story is on page 45 of the Punch. And lastly, on the cover of the Punch, Wike ends local government tolls. Assembly alleges plot to stall Fubara's impeachment. That story is on page 3 of the Punch. And don't forget to log into the website of the Punch for continuation of those headline stories. And from Vanguard, from the Punch, we move to the last paper we have on our lineup this Monday, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard is on Rivers crisis. It says, why I said dogs are backing Fubara. the embattled governor of Rivers State. Tinubu can sack me if I can no longer offer anything. Wike Amawule avoid impeachment comment at Port Harcourt rally. There's plots to stop legislative proceedings coming from Rivers Assembly. These are kickers to the leading story on Vanguard newspaper this Monday. Is on Rivers crisis, and Fubara says why I said dogs are barking. We move ahead to the other stories gracing the cover of Vanguard this Monday. Tinubu broke education path, abandoned students abroad. Article alleges NMA forced media trial over Chimamanda's son's death. Loans to manufacturers shrink to 2.1 trillion naira, drop in 5 sectors, 17.5% to 16.43 trillion naira in 6 months. And that takes us to the stories just above the masthead of Vanguard. Insecurity, release of 17 bandits sparks outrage in Katsina. 6 kids in Niger Sokoto communities. Leadership has that leading story on its cover that the Katsina state government was set to release 70 bandits in prison. And Vanguard is also on that same story. Insecurity, release of 70 bandits sparks outrage in Katsina. Iran, 466 kids, 2,638 detained. Tehran vows to retaliate if U.S. strikes, blames foreign terrorists for protest. Iran, 466 kids, 2,638 detained. Tehran vows to retaliate if U.S. strikes, blames foreign terrorists for protest. The developing story actually, the United States government headed by Donald Trump has vowed to attack Iran if it attacks its protesters. And this story has it that 46 has been killed so far in the protest, the ongoing protest in Iran, while 2,638 have been detained so far. Lastly, on the cover of Vanguard, local government accounts, Osun files charges against bank officials, hearing holds January 30. Same this story in some other papers we reviewed earlier on this section of the program. And with that, we bring to a close today's newspaper review on Inside Nigeria. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of these headline stories, and don't also forget to follow us on all our social media handles for trending stories. My name is Winifred Ugbebo. I look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast.